things have changed a lot since we did this analysis. 5 or 6 really relevant guys. Now we might only have 1 or 2 guys that weren't relevant before. Definitely, probably huge buys now, like Tanner Boyd, right near the top of this list.
Titans is going to be crazy, isn't it? I really don't know what to think. You've got guys like Aaron Clark, who could be potential options. David Fafita could come out and average 60, could come out and hit a couple of 40s to kick it off. You got Cam Pereira, who's in a lot of teams. Do the Titans actually play well and he gets plenty of opportunities, or does he become a guy that gets 10 and then 30? There's plenty of question marks in this squad, especially when they have a bye in round 5. It's very awkward, right?
Yeah, it's tough, especially with Storm and Cowboys leading into that. If they change things up, that could really halt any price rises from those cashies. So you've got to be a little bit wary of that, to be honest.
And then a couple of buys through that middle period. That, you know, if there's potentially some keepers, they're going to be great through the back end, right? From round 17 onwards, they've got plenty of opportunities. But we will jump into our buyers chat in about a week's time, guys. We'll get into that in big detail, which is going to be awesome. But our Titan squad, let's kick it off with Tanner Boyd. Is he just a lock? Should he be a lock in everyone's squad?
Yeah, I think so. He's now looked to be the starting halfback, where he averages high 40s at the back end of last year. Even though he's been priced up a few points, he's still low to mid 30s, and that's easily 10 points of value. The only bad thing that might happen to him is if the Titans go poorly and they decide to shift it up, put Brimson back in the halves or even Sexton in the halves, he might be gone, and they might, I'd say if he'll do that, it'll be in the round 5 buy, so they've got an extra week for combinations. But with his good scoring, he still might have made his money by then and jump off.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think you'd be very risky to be against him, given he's under 500k. Very similar to Brandon Smith there. There's so many percentage people are on him and has that upside, which Tanner does as well. So yeah, there's just not much benefit for going off him, because at worst he's probably just going to hit his 33.5, right? And then at best he can hit 50. So that's Tanner there. Pretty easy on that one. Brimson, a little bit annoying again that he's been priced up. What are your thoughts on him overall?
Yeah, well, I was pretty keen on him, to be honest, because he looked like he was going to be maybe at 5'8" and Boyd was going to be benched. But now we see that he's going to be probably fullback and Campbell's going to be benched. So Campbell's pretty much destroyed as an option, will lose a lot of cash. Maybe if they change it up later, he will be a good option. But Brimson, he averaged like pretty much 50 in the halves and 40 at fullback. So I don't really like him anymore, particularly as he's priced up 1.5 points.
Yeah, Titans are going to be amazing to start for him to be a value, right? So yeah, I think we can avoid him to kick it off and sort of reassess from round 6, or reassess at the back end of the year, see how he's going. So Jaden Campbell will scrap at the moment, guys, on the bench, not on that starting side. Let's avoid. Aaron Clark's a big one to talk about at a 41.5 price point. And most likely we'll have that duel, right? When he gets named a 13, we hope, right? But what's going on?
Yeah, well, all indications were in preseason and from all their signings that Aaron Clark would be the 13 moving forward. They even extended him a few years, but Isaac Liu's there in the second trial and he's on the bench. So I really don't know what's going on. In those 4 games or so he started at lock last year, there were a couple of softer games, but he really took off. He scored like 50 and a 70 in there and looked really, really good. And at his price of low 40s, well, he would have just banked as a really good mid-range cash cow, especially with the duel if he got it. But now, well, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe this is just give him a bit of a rest before round 1, but I don't see really why they'd put Liu at lock in preference to him for this second trial. So a definite huge one to keep an eye on. Yeah,
well, you'd say Liu would play some 13, right? But you'd want to get your combinations together, I'd say, heading to round 1. So they're obviously both going to play there, but yeah, it's just going to be a wait and see come round 1, right? And you've got him in your Poduary as well. So guys, check out the pod shorts. We're up to day 17. So there's plenty on there. Aaron Clark's one of those guys you've got there with your value between 3.5 and 13.5. So really just a big range there, because we're not exactly sure how he's going to go. He could absolutely brain it and get 55 average, or he could be somewhere around that 45, which is not the worst thing in the world, especially if he's got the duel, but we need him to start next week if he's going to be an option at all. Big Tino, he's a big question mark as well. One of your pod plays, potentially, at a 54 price point. Can he better that?
I think he can. I had a look at his stats and nothing really made sense until it was split into beginning and end of year, and he just picked up his form. I think he took a bit of a slow start to the captaincy. He's only 23, so I think you can forgive him for a slow start. But even from about round 12 onwards, he actually added an offload to his game and just ran more meters, more tackles, even before he moved to prop. So I reckon he's due a definite uptick. I'd probably say be closer to 60 than 50, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it too. And at worst, he scores your 54, 55, and yeah, he's a gun. And overall, not one of the top tiers in terms of like Murray and stuff, but definitely potential, definitely a definite gun with some upside, right? My only issue with him was the fact that it was limited amount of games, just the 5 games at the end. Very similar to vibes I'm getting to the previous year when Titans finished really well. Also, they've done that 2 years in a row now. When they've scored great at the back end, things are a little bit more free. There's plenty of points being put on the board. Obviously, a little bit different with guys like Toby Sexton, who killed it that year with a forward, which is might be something we're seeing with Tanner Boyd, but we're also not expecting him to score 50, aren't we? So, yeah, definitely interesting one with Tino. I wouldn't push you away from him, but I would probably say Tarpanay is a slightly better option. Do you have them, if you would have 1v1 them, who do you pick?
I would probably pick Tarpanay, even at like about 20k more, because I do think his ceiling is just higher. His points per minute is definitely higher. Their minutes are actually roughly similar. Tina might even get more, but Tarpanay is an absolute wrecking ball when he's on.
Yeah, for sure. And guys, jump in that private group. We're about to announce the prizes. Let's speak about there. Plenty going on. You need to be in that private group by the start of round 1 and in that league. So if you're not in there, you're not eligible for the big prizes. So get in there as soon as possible so you don't forget. I know people like leaving it to last minute, but get in now. That would be great. Awesome. Okay, we moved to Beau Fermor there. We've got him at a 51.7 average. He had a great year last year, but what we're looking for at this price point, if you're not a top tier gun in that position, we want some value, and we don't see value, right?
No, well, he needs more base stats. He actually had 5 more tries or something like that than David Fafita last year, which is pretty shocking. So this year, does he get that? Maybe. It depends on what the Titans are going to start off like and whether Boyd in the halves makes any difference. I think his partner in the second row, David Fafita, is a much better chance of having that really high 60-plus ceiling if things go right.
Cool. So he's priced at a 54 there, David. So do you see that 60? Do you see him doing it early?
He needs 80 minutes. I don't know what Holbrook's going to do. If somebody like a Joe Stimson or a Khaleesi Haas is on the bench in round 1, don't touch him. That's a bench edge. He'll probably get spelled for 20 minutes like he was at times last year. If there's none, I think you can start with him, but there's no guarantee if Holbrook wants to change it up because they're losing that won't happen later on. So he's definitely one you can punt on if the bench is right round 1, but don't be surprised if it goes pear-shaped halfway to Origin.
Yeah, because Beau should be locked in for 80, right? So if there is that option, it's clearly for Fafita. Yeah, it's a good way to think about it. And we got Jojo, one of our wingers, at a 34.8 price point. He averaged 37 last year, so he actually went down. But bad price, right?
Yeah, he's one of only 2 players in the entire comp that was underpriced instead of priced up. But yeah, 35 with a little bit of uncertainty about Brian Kelly coming back from suspension. Kelly might not get back in the team, but there is a little bit of suspension and he's an awkward price. I just don't think it's probably worth starting with him.
Yeah, plenty of other better options for sure. Kieran Foran at 431. Is there any value in him? You've got him down as a slight interest. There's some video that went around today or yesterday about him playing both sides of the field and really just dictating terms for this team. Is he finally going to score enough to be fantasy relevant?
I don't think so. I think Tanner Boyd is going to take too much off him.
Yeah.
He might push up to 34, 35, but I can't see 40 next to a half who does most of the kicking.
Yeah, I agree with that. We got Mo Fotuaika, a bit of a down year last year. He made Origin the year before. Would you say pretty similar to Daniel Saifidi in terms of just having that bit of a down year and potentially has some improvement in him? But is he too expensive?
Yeah, potentially. I think he is too expensive. In all honesty, he might become more of an option if they keep Clark on the bench, because that might mean he plays less middle minutes and does spell Verrills at hooker, basically guaranteed. That might mean more prop minutes for Fodawaker, but like that's all narrative, and he's already priced at 43. He's not going to be an absolute must keeper, so yeah, avoid him.
Yeah, exactly. And thoughts on Khaleesi Haase if he does get on that bench? Is he just probably not guaranteed enough minutes to start off?
Yeah, bench edge is probably only second to bench utility as the worst scoring position in the entire game. So unless he starts getting really good minutes and Fafita starts getting only 45 minutes or even less, you can't touch him. And I mean, Holbrook would be mad to play Fafita for half a game. He has to play at least 60, probably 80, but yeah, he probably is coming in to get some experience if he's going to be there for a couple of games.
But yeah, maybe an option at some point if there's injuries. But for now, let's leave it at no. Pat Herbert at 26, just too awkward a price, right? Jamin Jolliffe, again, awkward a price. Might do okay. Should be able to get decent minutes, but at 484, yuck. Kelly coming back from suspension, always a middling type of player. Khan Pereira, looks like you'll get that wing spot, right?
Yeah, he's an interesting one. He strikes me as a Jason Saab type. Somebody who can score a million tries and run really fast, but has absolutely no base. So one week he might score you 8, and the next week he might score you 48 with 2 tries. Yeah. You just don't really know what's going to happen. The Kelly suspension makes it a little bit interesting because he might keep the spot, but he might be pushed out in round 4. So he might not have enough cash if he does throw in one of those really low scores, if he doesn't actually run over for a try. So I don't hate him, but I'm probably going to look to Warbrick instead of Khan Pereira.
Oh, man, there's no need to throw hate around. You're a nice guy. Isaac Liu, a bit of a nothing fantasy score, isn't he, at 500k? Just does okay. Good player overall. Of course he is. Roosters system. But yeah, we got Sam McIntyre next. Chris Randall, very expensive. He's not going to get the start. So look for him to get, hopefully, a lot of price drops. And if there is an injury to Verrills, he will be your man. But let's hope that's not the case. We've got Philip Sami, again, too awkwardly priced. Aaron Shop, probably the same, right?
Yeah, Aaron Shop was a little bit interesting until Boyd moved to the halves. Boyd's a really good goal kicker. And before that, it looked like Shop might have been in line to snatch it off some of the starters. But now he's probably just going to sit there at the same price that he was before.
Yep. And then we got Toby Sexton, who still scored 40 last year, so had a decent year that way. You've got him with some slight interest. Is that just if he happens to get the 7 at some point in the year?
Yeah, pretty much. It was also with Campbell at fullback that he outscored going to be in the team, I think, to start. So, yeah, not one to look at, really.
Yeah, awesome. Really not too much else to say. We got Sam Verrills, who's has some interest as well at 613. Do we just think he gets 80 minutes?
I don't think so. From what the bench lineup of the Titans has looked like in the preseason and things like that, we thought that the only guy who could spell him would probably be Aaron Clark. Boyd could potentially do it, but they have to shift their entire spine to put Campbell fullback, Brimpson halves, Boyd hooker, which I think would be just too much for disruption mid-game. So I think if Aaron Clark does play only lock, which at this stage it's actually looking pretty unlikely that Verrills would play 80, but yeah, I think he gets about 65 minutes.
That's very fair. Titans, hey? I feel like I've only got one in my team at the moment. There's definitely some chance of others, but really it's Tanner Boyd for me at the moment. Are you looking at anyone else?
Yeah, Tanner Boyd for me. I wouldn't hate it. I really don't mind David Fafita if he starts with a good bench. Other than that, not a lot of interest anymore for some team that looked really relevant a couple of weeks ago.
It's crazy how much changes, right?
Yeah, round 1 will probably throw up some more.
Yeah, and that Khan Pereira stat there I pointed out, we've got averaging 32 in Q Cup, and he scored 25 tries. 18 games. That's ridiculous, eh? Just says he's probably a trap. So that's the Titans video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. See you later.